Welcome to Eat Like a Local, a podcast discussing the food and travel guides from CZYK Publishing. Each guide highlights a travel destination through the best places to find great food, as recommended by a local in the area. Now, here's your host, Tom Hess.
Hey, hungry travelers. Welcome back to the Eat Like a Local podcast. My name is Tom. I'm a media content creator, voice artist, and audiobook narrator for CZYK Publishing, who brings you the Eat Like a Local book series, along with Greater Than a Tourist and the 50 Thing to Know book series. Today is an exciting day because for the first time, we're going across the pond. We're going to England. Specifically, we're going to Birmingham, England. Now, I know in America, if you live in Alabama, it's Birmingham, but over there, they say Birmingham. Now, Birmingham is located in the West Midlands, and it's approximately 100 miles or 160 kilometers northeast of London. It's the second largest city in the UK, and the cool thing about Birmingham is it's got a lot of different variety for you to explore taste-wise and something to satisfy pretty much any appetite. There is a restaurant or eatery for everyone. But like I tell you each and every time, and with all these books, if you're going there, please do your research ahead of time because the author makes suggestions based on their personal knowledge. But if you're going there, you want to make sure the places that you want to specifically go to are going to be available when you travel there. So, like I said, the Eat Like a Local Food and Travel Guide, Birmingham, United Kingdom, is written by Victoria Heath. But before we get into the book, I just want to remind you, if you want this book or any of the Eat Like a Local or Greater Than a Tourist or 50 Things to Know books for that matter, you can find the books, ebooks, and a lot of them are in audiobook format as well. You can go to Amazon, find your book there, and you'll be in great shape. And I'll leave you some information on that in the show notes if you want to look for that. So let's get into the book, and let's start by talking about who our author is, Victoria Heath. Now, Victoria grew up in Birmingham. She's from there. She's lived there her whole life. And so she knows what's going on in Birmingham. She's a student who just loves to write, whether it's she writes a greeting card or she writes a book. She loves anything to do with Birmingham. Now, since she's lived there her whole life, she knows, like I said earlier, she knows what's going on there. And she thinks, in her own personal opinion, as you would expect, that Birmingham is a place that everybody who likes to travel needs to put on their bucket list. So, without further ado, let's talk about some of the great things that Birmingham, England has to offer you. Food-wise, that is. I'm sure it has lots of things to offer you culturally, sightseeing-wise, but we're specifically here to talk about food. But before we talk about food, let's talk about some of what she calls the basics of Birmingham, and that is shopping. Now, there's a couple different shopping centers. There's something called the Bull Ring, Grand Central, and Piccadilly Arcade. Now, I'm familiar with that. I think I've heard of that before. But when you go to these shopping places, you're going to see different eateries and retail shops in each. And with each shopping section comes a different atmosphere. So, go see them all and see what best suits you. Now, when traveling around Birmingham, Victoria suggests that you use public transportation. And if you're planning to use it, she says there's a couple of great apps you can download. One is the Network West Midlands, and the other is the National Express West Midlands. I guess they're the public transit companies, and they have apps that you can find buses, I don't know if they just have buses or trains or trolleys, but you'll be able to find it there when you can get them up, pick them up, and take you where you want to go. Another thing that Victoria suggests, which I actually think is pretty cool, and that is, she says, explore the city and then figure out your food destinations. That is great advice, because when I travel, granted, I don't travel as much as I would like, but when I travel, I like to just go with the flow and see what looks good where I am at the time. Now, that's not to say you can't put a couple places specifically that you want to go to and find them and put them in your plans. But other times, just go around the city and see where it just naturally takes you food-wise. And more times than not, you'll probably be pleasantly surprised. If you can say it, that is. More times than not, you will probably be pleasantly surprised. It's what's that thing when not onomatopoeia. I forget what it's called, but simply don't limit yourself to the center of Birmingham, because that's what's in her book. Travel and see what takes you to where you're going, and you're going to find some good spots, I'm sure. Now, getting into the food. There are what I would say are quintessential British food, and that's exactly where she starts in her book. And if you're going to start, you might as well start with the starting meal of the day, and that's breakfast. Now, the typical English breakfast is what is referred to over there as a fry-up. And it's a hearty meal. Is it a heavy meal? It could be, because you're going to have sausages, bacon, eggs, and then with it, you're going to get beans, boiled tomatoes, mushrooms, and then, coffee or tea. Most likely probably tea, I would think, in Britain. Now, the place that Victoria suggests going to for your fry-up is, one of them anyway, is the Hyleton Cafe if you're around the Jewelry Quarter. Another great place is Juju's Cafe, because they offer not only your typical stuff, but they have vegetarian options and vegan options. They have things like smashed avocado muffins, veggie sausages with eggs, veggie hash, along with your typical traditional English breakfast foods. Moving on to another quintessential British food item is the roast dinner. Now, when I think of roast dinner, I think of roast beef, but I was pleasantly surprised to find that a roast dinner could be any roast of meat. I think typically it would be more beef, but if you go to Anderson's Bar and Grill in St. Paul Square, they have a Sunday roast dinner, and you can get two options, really. They have one that's a 3-course meal for, at the time of this printing anyway, was 25 pounds. Or you can get a $20 pound, I'll probably do that a lot, a 20-pound vegetarian meal. Now, you get 3 courses. You get a starter, your dinner, and then a dessert option. They have things for starters like truffle beignets, prawn cocktail, which in America we would call shrimp cocktail. And then your roasts are turkey with wild mushroom and truffle cream sauce, Anderson's steak of the day, and you can finish it off with some sticky toffee pudding, fruit crumble, or brownies. Another thing typical to Britain is afternoon tea. And when you have afternoon tea, you're going to get things like scones with cream and jam, finger sandwiches, or other types of small plates. Now, where are you going to go for afternoon tea? Aside from all the regular English tea places, the one that I want to highlight and what Victoria suggests you go to is a place called Zindaya, because that's Indian, and all their food and teas and foods are all going to be Indian spiced. They offer what's called high chai. They have things like cardamom scones, seasonal macarons, Bombay sandwiches, and their teas are things like masala chai to very berry and then English breakfast like you would suspect. But that, if you like Indian, that is, I think, a cool place that you might want to go and see and visit for something different than just your regular English tea. Now, moving on is another thing that, I mean, personally for me, I love. I get it even when I go to regular places here in the States, and that is a fish and chip shop. And over there, they call their slang for a fish and chip shop is a chippy. And a couple of the best places in Birmingham that she says to go to are Dad's Lane Fish Bar and Pisces Fish Bar. But they have them all over the city, so you can't go wrong. Now, the thing about a chip shop is that typically it's not a sit-down restaurant. You get it, they wrap it in like paper or what's the other word I'm looking for? Trays, and you just take it to go, take it home, and just eat it there. But I think if you like fish and chips, and I certainly do, then go to a chip shop and get some good fish and chips. Now, what do they, I think it's usually big flaky fish. Is it like cod or halibut? I think that's the general fish they use, but I could be mistaken. At least that's what I see. That's what they use here, but I think any big flaky white fish is typically a fish and chip item. So how about some British pie? Now, that's not pie like I think of pie. It's British pie is generally a meat pie. And the place to go is called the Pie Master. They have individual pies that are served with gravy, or you can get it as a meal, which would have accompaniment things like mushy peas, chips, which are French fries to us Americans, and a whole host of other things you can get. Now, as far as flavors, how about beef and ale pie, chicken pie, bacon and tarragon, things like that. They also offer at Pie Master gluten-free and vegan pies like mushroom, tomato, or quinoa. Quinoa in a pie, that sounds interesting. And they also offer desserts and such that you can choose from if you have room. So that is your typical British food that I think if anybody's going to Great Britain, England, United Kingdom, whichever. What is the most proper way to refer to it? Is it England? Is it Britain? Or is it, well, the United Kingdom, I guess, would be everything like England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. What else is out there? Is that it? I think so. But I think it would either be England or Britain. I think they call it Britain, but I don't know. So how about some things that you're only going to find in, maybe not only find them there, but Victoria refers to them as Birmingham specialties. And the first one is the Birmingham Balti. Now, the origins of the Balti, and a Balti, from what I could figure out, is kind of like an Indian inspired or Middle Eastern inspired stir fry. And the place to get it, and the most renowned, according to Victoria, is at a place called Adil's, Adil. And its owner, Muhammad Arif, is said to have been the guy that came up with the idea of the Balti. Now at Adil's, they have things such as samosas and tandoori seafood, tropical Baltis, and even biryanis. Now, I forget off the top of my head what a biryani is. I think it might be some kind of like a pancake or something like that, but I'm not 100% sure. And they also have things for kids, which is kind of cool. So go to Adil's if you like that type of food, and get yourself a Balti. Next, you have to try, if you've never had it before, Victoria says have some pork scratchings. What are pork scratchings? Pork scratchings are what we would call here in America pork rinds. And what they do is they fry them, and then they're seasoned with salt and other flavorings. Now, they usually sell them, you can get them fresh, or at convenience stores, they have them prepackaged, and as well as like in the bigger chain stores in Britain. Now, unlike here where all pork rinds are like crispy, over there, they have them two ways. They have them hard and crispy, or puffy, that she says is more like popcorn. And you usually get them for about a bag of them for about £1. I don't know how big the bag is, but hey, for £1, what can you go wrong? So moving on, how about some street food in Birmingham? Now, there's a place called the Digbeth Dining Car. Now, it's not what you would think, I would think of a dining car as like a place, but it's actually like an area for vendors. They have stalls and venues, and the cool thing about it is it changes a lot. So you could keep going back there and keep getting different foods. I mean, anything from meats and Caribbean delights to everything in between that's going to satisfy, I think, any palate, any appetite, and you will be very happy, I think, if you go to the Digbeth Dining Car. Digbeth, Digbeth. Now, they also have a thing, if you are traveling to Birmingham in the holiday season, between like November, December, I don't know how far after the holidays it goes, but they have the largest German market in Europe outside of Austria or Germany. And they have everything from sweet food, savory food, all different kinds of drinks. You can get things like chocolate-covered marshmallows, donuts, gingerbread. But if you want a sweet food, the thing that Victoria thinks is the go-to, and that's her go-to, is the Kinder Bueno crepe, which is warm chocolate surrounded by this really nice, freshly prepared crepe. But if sweet food's not your thing, you can get things like a Frankfurt-style hot dog with potato fries, or drinks like mulled wine, different kinds of beer. If it's a German place, I would think you could get some really good beer there. But they don't just have food. They have craft stalls, handcrafted things, homewares, housewares, children's toys. So if you're like a marketer, you like to go to different shops and markets when you travel, and you're there in November or December, check out the Christmas market, which is, where's it located? She doesn't specifically say where it's located. But it's, I mean, how big is Birmingham? I'm sure it'd be easy to find. Ask the guy at your hotel. Next, now we're getting into my area. I was going to say area of expertise, but it's just my area that I like. and that is the bar and pub scene. They have a lot of them. Like I said, Great Britain, the British Isles, that's what I think of when I think of pubs. But the one specifically that I want to highlight is a place called Jekyll and Hyde, and that's located in the Colmore Business District. Now, the cool thing about Jekyll and Hyde is it's themed after the story. What you can find in Jekyll and Hyde is, a great selection of cocktails, but they have over 100 different gins from around the world. I'm not a gin guy, but that still sounds cool. Or you can head to their upstairs parlor, and they have a seasonal cocktail menu that's all set up in this great Victorian decor. And keeping the theme going, they have themed food like the Dr. Jekyll pie, which is beef ale and mushroom, or the Mr. Hyde pie, which is roasted root vegetables in a cream sauce. And then they also have, as you can imagine, your craft ales, bottled beer, and soft drinks if you are so inclined to have something a little less adult inspired, or if you're the DD or the designated navigator. Now, as you can imagine, in pretty much any city, they have a good selection of international fare. If you are into some Chinese style food, one of Victoria's favorite places is a place called Ming Moo. That is a Pan-Asian buffet restaurant. They have things like duck pancakes, beef stir fry with noodles. They also offer dessert with a chocolate fountain, which I only ever generally see that at like weddings and stuff. But they have a chocolate fountain, an ice cream machine, and like I said, or like Victoria says, it's a buffet. So, you can sit there and eat yourself silly if you want some Chinese food. Another thing, in addition to Chinese food, there's a place it's also in the Chinese Quarter, called the CZYK Bakery, that offers some Asian baked goods such as egg tarts and cheesecake. And the CZYK Bakery also sells bubble tea, which we'll get into in a little bit. It's very interesting. And their bubble tea is made with fresh milk, leaves, I'm assuming that's tea leaves, and fruit flavors such as pineapple, smashed taro, and cheese rose. That sounds very interesting. But put a pin in that bubble tea, because that's something that we are going to talk about just in a little bit. So you go all the way to England, and you're thinking, you know what? We're here in this foreign country, and I want to eat food from back home. And that's not too surprising, because a lot of people they'll only eat food they know. Speaking of Chinese buffets, going on a tangent. One of my old previous bosses, we would go out to the Chinese buffet, and he would eat the pizza, the French fries, like roast chicken, like all that stuff in the 5-foot table of American style food. That's what he would eat. Why go to the Chinese buffet? But anyway, I digress. So if you prefer to stick with the food while you're in Birmingham, you can go down to Broad Street to a place called Coast to Coast. And they have American classics that you are familiar with, like nachos, fried calamari, chicken wings, pulled pork, burgers, buffalo ribs, mac and cheese, milkshakes, and desserts like pancakes, cheesecake, cookies, pecan pie. So if you want just your good old American food, head on over to Coast to Coast on Broad Street, and it'll be just like you never left home. So how about you want to go to a steakhouse? I mean, I particularly don't think of steak. I think of steak as, steakhouse is American food. Now, I don't know if this is the typical style, like New York steakhouse or Texas steakhouse that you would think of. But if you go to, and it's actually not, it's going to be an Argentinian restaurant, It's called Fiesta del Asado, which means, I think asado is meat, fiesta. So it's probably like party with meat. I think that's what that might literally mean, party with meat. And that is, they have a couple different locations, but they have things like beef sirloin, a 40-ounce beef costilla for two, and grilled flank steak. And they have a house sauce that they baste each and every steak with that's served with fries, but you can also get an upgrade to chips. Now, I thought fries were chips. Chunky chips. Oh, they say chunky chips. I guess that's why. Or steak's not your thing, Italian could be your thing. They have an Italian eatery that Victoria suggests called Fogo, F-O-G-O, Fogo Bar and Kitchen. They have things like wood-fired pizza, pasta, and your traditional Italian dishes, things like spaghetti bolognese, seafood risotto, pizza margherita, and they also have a large variety of Italian wines and beers. And what they do, it's specifically selected to complement the meal that you get. So say I'm having spaghetti bolognese, they will tell you, they'll suggest what would be good for you to eat with it, which is kind of cool. Now, if Italian's not your thing, go further east yet. And how about some Japanese fare? There's a place called Yakinori, Yakinori. They have locations, I guess that's the main Japanese place, perhaps, but they have locations dotted all around Birmingham. And the one in the city center, which is in Grand Central, I'm assuming that's some sort of transit station, probably train station. You can get fresh sushi, teriyaki, katsu curry are some of the traditional Japanese flavors they offer. But she says the thing that you need to try is the chicken and prawn chili noodles. That sounds really good. It's a combination of spiced stir-fried noodles with crispy vegetables and succulent meat. And that's a cool thing. Like, I don't know if it's Chinese or Japanese, but that's like the way they coat the meat before they cook it. Just makes it so like soft and really, really good. But also another thing to keep in mind is their noodles are prepared to order. So you're going to get some really good food there at Yakinori. So how about some bao? Do you know what bao is? I'm going to tell you. Bao it's kind of like a yeast bread from Chinese cuisine, and it's usually that's steamed, and then it's filled with or served with all kinds of different fillings. There's another place in Grand Central for bao. So if one of you wants yakinori, Japanese noodles, and the other one says, no, I want a little sandwich, I'm going to have some bao, go to Tiger Bites Pig. That's an interesting name. Tiger Bites Pig. You can get different bao fillings like beef and chili, chicken with spring onion and ginger, or if you're vegetable, you can get tofu or aubergine. I think it's cool how cultures around the world call different things different. Like, do you know what aubergine is? Aubergine is eggplant. They call it aubergine because that's the color of an eggplant, aubergine. But I just think it's cool how different places, I know, they speak English like we speak English, but they speak English different. So far we know chips are fries, aubergines are eggplants. What else did we come up with? I don't know. Let's keep a running tab. But getting back to this at Tiger Bites Pig. But if you don't want to bao, you can get things like rice bowls, that have different toppings on them. And besides that, any of the eateries at Grand Central are great to pick up something like a grab-and-go snack or food while you're shopping or while you're waiting for your train to go some other places. So if you're more in the upscale and you want to try some upscale dining or fine dining, Birmingham has some great Michelin-star dining experiences that you can visit and try. And one of them is a place called Adams Restaurant. They have, where is this? This is, I don't know specifically where it is, but it's in Birmingham. And they have excellent ratings from things like TripAdvisor, the Food Guide. In 2019, Adams was rated the #1 restaurant in the UK. And it was the 10th rated restaurant in the entire world, according to TripAdvisor. Of course, at a restaurant like that, you're going to spend some dough. Now, typically, a 3-course meal at Adams is going to set you back around 75 pounds. That's at the time that Victoria did her research. But you're going to, the 10th best restaurant in the world for 75 pounds, if you're a serious foodie, and I would assume maybe you are because we're here together, then I think you're going to get a lot of bang for your pound. Not bang for your buck, bang for your pound at Adams. They have lunch menus, they have tasting menus, they have 3-course menus that all are going to have things like scallops, suckling pig, and things like banana souffle for dessert. So if you want a big time fine dining experience, maybe go to Adams and see what they have to offer. I would imagine a place like that, I would think, check out, see if they have a website. Because if you're going to go, like just say you're going to Birmingham for a week, I don't know, can you go and get in? I mean, is that a place that they take reservations like months ahead of time? Who knows? Especially nowadays with what's going on. You might, like I said, and I say in all these books, do your research ahead of time to make sure, especially a place like Adams, that if that's the #1 place you want to go to, that you're going to be able to go and get in during the time frame that you're in Birmingham. So aside from the, oh my gosh, this is the best restaurant I've ever been to in my life, like Adams, you're going to need some places to go to grab a quick something or a quick drink, a quick bite to eat. And this, where we put that pin a while ago, we're coming back to it right now. Bubble tea. Bubble tea has gotten really popular in the past few years, according to Victoria. I had never heard of it until I read Victoria's book about Birmingham. Bubble tea came about in Taiwan in the early 1980s. And what it is tea made with or without milk, but what they, and different flavorings, fruit flavorings and whatever, but what's also in it is the bubbles. And that is tiny little tapioca pearls. And it sounds very interesting to me. I mean, I when I drink tea, I don't put any milk or anything in it, but I do like flavored tea. But the place to go in the Bull Ring, in the section called the Bull Ring, is a place called Mi Cha. They have a good range and variety of milky flavors or fruity flavors in your bubble tea. Mi Cha also sells fruit slushies that you can customize with a choice of toppings, as well as a different variety of yogurts and ice creams. Now, I would think if you're going, especially if that is the area where it's popular, getting back to, I mean, some people just like what they like, and I'm not against you liking what you like. But if bubble tea is popular, I'm going to try some bubble tea. Like the place that we go to a lot is when we travel to, I'm getting off on another tangent, But like we travel to the Bahamas, we eat, grouper and peas and rice and and conch. So that's the local food. That's what we eat. But again, you eat what you like. But I think bubble tea is something cool that I would want to try if I was in Birmingham or wherever I could get it. If that's the food that they sell, or they're famous. Are they famous for, or is it popular, or whatever? But you know what I mean. So how about something for the sweet tooth? The place where Victoria says is her all-time favorite. And she wrote this book, so she knows. And she's a Birmingham native her whole life, is a place called Mr. Pretzel. And her favorite thing there is the warm cinnamon sugar pretzel. I'm not doubting what she says. Me personally, I'm more of a savory pretzel guy. I don't really go for sweet pretzels. But that being said, she says the cinnamon sugar pretzel is really good. I'm assuming it's a soft pretzel. But they also have other flavors like chocolate, cheese, or pizza. And a pizza pretzel could be good. But her one that she says to go to is the cinnamon sugar pretzel. Did she tell you where that is? Again, it's in Birmingham. You'll find it if you're going there, so don't worry about it. Now, this is something I wanted to touch on because chocolate, Cadbury chocolate. I love Cadbury chocolate. I don't know why, but it's just Cadbury chocolate is super creamy to me. And I always like, especially getting into the spring in America, when you get the little Cadbury Easter eggs. I love them. Love them, love them. So, if I was going to Birmingham, I would be going to Cadbury's chocolate because it comes from the United Kingdom and the origins of Cadbury are in Birmingham. So, I'm definitely going to Cadbury's World. Cadbury's World. It's almost like that's like Willy Wonka-ish to me. And it's kind of like it's like a combination of a shop, a learning experience, and just everything chocolate that you can imagine. They charge you to get in, but once you're in there, you can get. You go in. It's a self-guided tour, but you get free chocolate while you're in there on the tour. Yes, I said free chocolate. 2 words we all love to hear. Free chocolate. And other things they have in Cadbury, of course, they have a shop where you can buy all kind of different things. You'll learn about the history behind chocolate making and things like that, which is something very cool. So yeah, definitely. I think that's like in the top 3 of Victoria's book for me is the Cadbury chocolate. So that is basically just an overview of the things that you can do and eat in Birmingham. Now, I just touched the surface. I mean, in this book, there's all kinds of great information. There's burgers, there's other ethnic style global food that it just doesn't, I mean, in the amount of time we're together, it seems to barely touch the surface. So as you can imagine, if that's the good things, what else do they have? Now, I just want to finish up with, these aren't my suggestion. This is something Victoria says, and I 100% couldn't agree with her more. She says, and I think this is good for any traveling, don't take things too seriously. Just go there and just involve yourself and immerse yourself in that area and try something different. Like I said, you may want to just go to that coast to coast and just eat American food, but try something different. Try try a beef pie, try some bubble tea, try some authentic British fish and chips. Have a good fry up for breakfast with baked beans and broiled tomatoes. And if you do, I think you're going to find that you're going to have a better time. 2, you're going to more appreciate the place you're at. And is there 3? 3, you're going to eat some good food that you didn't expect was going to be good food. And finally, just to echo what Victoria says and the whole theme of what we've been talking about this past couple of minutes is, she says, just right from her book, the unpredictability of exploration is what makes any trip exciting. And I think that is really the thing that can sum it all up really well. So that's Birmingham Food and Travel from Victoria Heath, the Eat Like a Local Birmingham, United Kingdom Food and Travel Guide. Guys, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about the food in Birmingham, England. I didn't know that they had this kind of cool stuff, but I'm glad that even if I never go there, and who knows if I will or not, it's cool just to learn about different cultures and the food that they have in other places than what we're used to. So, like I said, if you want to check out this book, I'll leave you a link. You can find ebooks, regular books, audio books on Amazon for a lot of the Eat Like a Local book series, and you're going to have a good time when you prepare to go on your next travel destination. Thanks for joining me today. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully this motivates you to go. If you're not going there, just go to another location and find some really fun food, interesting food that might not be what you're used to. So come back for our next episode where we'll have another great travel destination. Remember to subscribe to the Eat Like a Local podcast. It's available on many of your podcast providers, or ask Alexa. I just found out recently from our publisher, Lisa Ruschek. She asked Alexa to play the Eat Like a Local podcast, and it did. I don't know if I was a little creeped out by the fact that I can be tracked down by Alexa, but you do it. If you're an Alexa type user, ask them to play the Eat Like a Local podcast and you'll have a good time. So for more information on Eat Like a Local books, you can go to greaterthanatourist.com and find out all that information. I'll have a lot more information in the show notes. Please support us, buy the books, listen to the podcast, go to the website, all that good stuff, and you'll have some great information for your next travel destination. So until we're back together again for the next Eat Like a Local podcast, take care and enjoy your hungry travels. I'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks for listening to Eat Like a Local from CZYK Publishing with your host, Tom Hess. We hope you enjoyed our look at this book to help you plan your next food and travel adventure. If you want more ideas about food and travel across the country and around the world, join us for our next episode. You can always find out more about all our travel books by visiting CZYKPublishing.com, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. That's all for this episode. See you next time.